Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and back to another Urban Calisthenics workout of my full body calisthenics routine. In today's session, I'm excited to bring to you a push, pull, abs and legs calisthenics workout, which you'll be doing 4 exercises for 45 seconds of work with 15 seconds of rest for a total of 4 rounds. That's 20 minutes in total. Now, one of those exercises, the staggered knee drops, you'll be doing for a total of 45 seconds per leg with the 15 seconds break in the middle, and that's what bumps it up to 5 minutes per round. Now, the equipment that you'll need for this session will be a set of gymnastics rings, a small space to work in, and you are good to go. As always, practice those instructionals before getting stuck in alongside a thorough warm-up. And I will leave a link in the description below for a warm-up that I feel is suitable for this routine, but by all means, do one of your own. That's enough from me. Let's see what's in store. So for the plank pull to push-up combination, you're going to start by laying your forearms on the floor as if moving into a plank. You're going to make sure your forearms are parallel and avoid your hands coming together. In this case, I've got the knees in contact with the floor, as are the feet, and the hips sit slightly behind the knee line. From this position, the intention is to take the head forwards as if moving into the bottom end range of a push-up. And as I do that, I'm going to be driving through the legs, keeping the head as low as possible and keeping the body as low as possible. So from here, I'm going to push off the legs, taking the head forwards. And as you can see, as a consequence, the elbows do come off the floor. I'm ready for the push-up now. So I'm going to push out strong, still pulling the abs in as best I possibly can. And now I'm going to descend. And to get back into the forearms, I'm going to be pushing through the upper body this time to get back to that position. So it's legs working to get me forwards. Pushing out strong. Now I need to descend, and now it's upper body pushing me back. And if you want to make this a little bit more challenging, what we can do in the start position, all we do is we take the knees from the floor. So you're going to have to work a little bit harder on the upper body. The legs are going to feel it too, but I'm going to push off in the same way, taking the body as close to the floor as possible, pushing out strong without the knees, descend, and now the upper body is going to have to work harder as we don't have the knees in contact with the floor anymore. So for the ring horizontal row, you're going to start by taking hold of the rings and then making your way down into a straight position. Just make sure that the arms are completely straight and you don't have your shoulders coming into contact with the floor. From here, you're going to start by elevating the hips, squeezing the backside, squeezing the legs and keeping the shoulders packed. As we initiate the pull, you're going to force the rings down the body, so pushing towards the hips and pulling up all at the same time. So essentially trying to get the ribs to come into contact with the wrists. So again, I'm going to pull up, force the rings down the body, essentially moving like a plank of wood, keeping the body as straight as possible. Back to full extension of the arms before moving into the next one. So if this is too challenging, what we can do is take this into a diagonal row, and this will take some of the effort away from the back. The setup will be exactly the same. So we keep the tension on the straps, we keep the body nice and straight, and still with the idea of pulling the rings towards the ribs as we go into that top position. So keep the back engaged at all times, especially on that negative, but forcing the rings down the body as you make your way up to that top position. So for the ring rollout from standing, you're going to start by setting your rings up to around about waist level. From here, you're going to put your hands on the rings, and before you even initiate the rollout itself, I want you to think about keeping the wrists as straight as possible, applying some pressure through the rings, so holding some tension through the straps. You're going to engage your shoulders, pull the abs in, and pull the pelvis under ever so slightly. From this position, whilst we're holding that tension, you're going to take the rings away from the body and rock your body forwards whilst holding your disc shape. You're going to take it as far as you can without losing shape, and then we're going to use that compression strength to bring yourself back into that upright position. So as we make our way into the rollout, you're going to make sure the shoulders don't move at all. So you're compressing down through the rings as hard as you can, holding that disc shape by the time you reach the end position, and not allowing your hips to collapse. A common error for this drill is that when you're taking the rings forwards, what can happen is we can end up leaving the hips behind and we fall into this pike position here. So notice how the backside is up in the air. We need to really think about pushing those hips down, locking in that disc shape, and only from then we're pressing down through the rings to return back to that standing position. So for the split knee drops, you're going to start yourself by moving into a duck stance position or staggered position, placing one hand either side of the foot. From here, the intention is to shift some weight forwards, pressing down through the floor, gripping the floor, keeping the arms as straight as possible, and then sending the hips as high as you possibly can until the legs go straight. Now, if this is not possible and the hamstrings don't like it, we can simply go up onto the fingertips, or even more so, we can bring the hands that little bit more forwards, taking the emphasis away from the back of the legs. But ultimately, you're trying to keep the palms fixed as best you possibly can. Once you've reached that top position, you move back down into your duck stance position, placing your backside on your heel, and then repeat. If this is still too challenging and you're having difficulty extending the legs, what you can do is grab yourself a couple of yoga blocks, place them either side of the lead leg, still with the intention of shifting the weight into the fingers or into the shoulders, and then working your leg extensions from here. So full extension of the legs, dropping back down onto the heel, sending the weight back into the shoulders before sending the hips up. Now, just before we kick things off with the workout, I just want to let you know that if you want to gain access to the full Urban Calisthenics library, then head over to urbancalisthenics.com, where you can access over 100 calisthenics workouts with a new workout added every single week for just $4.99 a month. You can also take advantage of a 7-day free trial with no commitments and no payments up front. Now let's get into the workout. Thanks so much for taking part in this Urban Calisthenics workout. I hope you had a great time challenging yourself and breaking a sweat. If you did find this workout useful and beneficial, please give me a like and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. If you do want to gain access to the full Urban Calisthenics library, please visit urbancalisthenics.com where you can gain access to over 100 workouts with a new workout added every single week for just $4.99 a month. Keep up the great work, stay motivated, and I'll see you on the next workout.